Yes, it's on. Great. Welcome, everybody, to California. Thank you all for coming, and this is our first official Grid Keepers Conclave. And this is fun because it means I don't have to start at the beginning and try to, like in the first 15 minutes, get you from Cathara 1 all the way up to where we are, which is really, really nice. So I appreciate all the effort a lot of you have made. I mean, everyone made an effort to get here, but some of you made an extraordinary effort to get here. There are people from Ireland and people from Australia, just to name a few. So it means a lot to us that you value the work that we do so much, that you're willing to put that kind of resource commitment, not to mention wear and tear on your mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies into arriving here. We do care very much about it being worth your while, but the information itself, as most of you know, or you wouldn't be grid keepers anyway, is worth the while, even if we have very strange schedules sometimes. Now, for this workshop, for tonight, it's just going to be a short, just little orientation and hello and welcome and that kind of thing, because this is one of those wonderful security clearance ones, which means it will work around the clock to get the transmissions in so we can deliver them to you. What it won't mean, however, is that we're going to keep you up until like 7 in the morning from a workshop that, came back in at like midnight. We're not going to do that this time because everyone needs to feel well enough and strong enough and well slept so we can do the reason why we're here, which is the excursion to Mount Shasta. We have some very special things that are going to come up during that period. I've been told that it is our first official, as representatives of the Emerald Covenant Templar team on this planet, it is the first official meeting with other such teams that will occur, not from this planet, but we are going to have 2 specific meetings. What these are going to look like, I don't know, because these are races. I know one of them is etheric in nature. They are shapeshifters, and they are meeting us officially. There is an official, we've talked about in different parts of workshops about times when certain beings from other places would come in and offer an Emerald Covenant restatement to races of a planet. Earth has gone through several of those type of restatements where they were official. And there would be official representatives of the Templar team of the planet being brought to meet official representatives of the Christic races from, some of the higher systems to bring them back officially into Emerald Covenant restatement. There is something that has not happened on this planet at all. It is called the Covenant of Crystale. That is the Emerald Covenant restatement, but on the level of the Crystale core councils. And it is very special, and it involves needing to understand, help us a bit more, history, not a lot, but a little. There's a big block of time in there since the fall of Lyra of 250 billion years ago, and then you had the fall of Metatron 150 billion years ago, and then we kind of hop, skip, and jump down to the Gaian-Orion Wars period of 570 million years ago. Like, wait a minute, there's a big time gap in the history there. It wasn't a time gap. It was just those records weren't pertinent to what needed to be understood at the time, and eventually they would be put into the entire linear run. We are going to be given a piece of what occurred during that period. There is something called the Vecca Wars that will shed some light on what has occurred in relation to the races that became known as the Wisa races that were from an adjacent Akasha, not even from our Akasha system. And in understanding this period of history, we'll begin to understand how the Andromeda Galaxy got to be a separate galaxy, and because the Milky Way used to be part of the galaxy that the Andromeda is a part of, how that happened, a little bit more about that. And the reason those things are significant has to do with something that is one of the best kept secrets in Density 1 in this VECA, and it's called the secret of the Aurora Force. The Aurora Force has to do with what are called the Aurora races. These were races of Christic guardian beings that came in from the adjacent Akasha in order to assist in, if it came to the point where this Vecca was falling, they would assist in a very special way in allowing a starfire potential from Density 1 only in our Vecca system. And so Density 1 becomes the final place that anything in our Vecca system from the higher densities down has to come in to get out through. The Aurora Force has been dormant for a very long time. It involves a lot of things, but first of all, it involves certain races that were known as the Aurora races. They don't exist anywhere else except in density 1 in our and Adore Vecca system. They were created and allowed themselves to be created. They created themselves specifically to be able to interface in here in the event that the threshold apparatus that we've recently begun learning about of the thetans was activated, because it would still allow something called riding the inner light as opposed to riding the outer light. If the outer light arcs are going to crash, there is still a stream of it's called the Aurora stream of frequencies that will still allow density 1 to experience a density level starfire in order to pick up the density Edon in our Vecca system, and from the density Edon ride the middles in, ride the density Edon to the Vecca Edon into the middle Edon. So it is the final redirect plan as far as the final evac plan. It will work, and it involves some fascinating things that we're learning more about as we go. Excuse me. One of the things we're learning about started to pop up when they had us go to the Phoenix area in Arizona, where I saw it very clearly, and it was right after a period of real tension. There was like this really, really unpleasant tension that lasted for a number of hours during that particular day. And then all of a sudden I saw, they hadn't been there at one moment, and then I saw with my etheric vision these things that looked like glass towers. They looked like sheets of glass, thin sheets of glass, placed horizontally on top of each other, but some of them were, the bigger ones were on the bottom and smaller ones going up to the top, and they made what looked like glass towers. And then they started sliding and making this really nasty scraping sound as if glass plates were sliding together. And I only remember seeing that effect one other time, and it was when we did, I believe that was our first Greece trip, wasn't it? Yeah, what was that, 2003? No, 2002, yeah. In Greece, the first Greece trip that we had done, we had gone to Crete, I believe it was. That was Crete, right? Yeah, it was Crete. And it was, yes. And it was really interesting because I remember seeing that effect, but not a tower, just a patch of it hanging in the air. And I'd never seen it before. And I said, hello, what is that? You know, they said, just watch and learn. Right? So, okay. And they said, it had something, they said, in simple terms, it has something to do with time interfaces. When those plates slide, if you have a bunch of glass plates stacked on top of each other, let's say you slide a few here and then a few there, and it actually creates an opening where there's no plates touching between certain levels. They're like plates of time that open intertime portal passages. And this, I knew at the time in Crete it was way over my head as far as what this type of Templar configuration. That was like master's class and beyond. But I realize now that they allowed me to see that then, so I'd have at least a reference point to what it looked like, and what we will learn more of what they are. The ones that began to pop up in the desert in Arizona were actually tower-shaped, where they weren't just a big patch of them. And these things are huge, like skyscraper size. And these go to a point where there's smaller plates on top, and then it comes down to very large base, like a base set of the plates, and then that goes down into the earth, where it goes down into the earth's core. And I remember when I saw them, I didn't know if they were positive or negative. And they wouldn't tell me right away. They said, watch and learn. Oh, here we go again. Well, what I watched and learned in Crete was that within, what was it? I forget how many. I said, the only feeling I get off it is I think it means that there's a real instability in literally the time wave forms or something here. And I think it means in the Crete area that it meant there was going to be an earthquake at some point. But at the time I'd said it, and there was a small group hanging out with me when I just kind of like offhandedly said, I think there's going to be an earthquake, but it could be 5 years down the road. I don't know. I didn't have a time feel on it. And I think it was Mac or you let me know that it was like 12 to 14 hours later, there was an earthquake. And I remember going, ooh, right? Wow, it's like I saw it. I knew what it meant as far as it meant an instability that would lead to, an earthquake. But what I had no sense on was when. That was a lot faster than I ever expected. It wasn't a major earthquake that, killed anybody in Crete or anything, but it was enough to where we were in our room, and all of a sudden this rumble happened, like, whoa, we looked at each other. Was that an earthquake? The first one I'd ever been in. Never did one of those where the room jumps around on you and things. So when I saw these in the desert recently in Arizona, where Arc 7 is and where our Hub 7 cluster is, it made me a bit concerned because these are not connected to the Arc Gate. They are not connected to the hub sets. And I don't think they belong there was my first assessment, but I'm not sure. The reason I wasn't sure at first is because actually there are sets that do belong there, but it wasn't the ones that we're activating. These activations are part of the threshold activations, and there are many sets of them. They seem to come up in sets of 12. We'll discuss during this workshop more about, more in a sequence of understanding, remember this, and this, and remember how these towers plug into this part of the anatomy on the planet that we've talked about before. Sorry, the desert climate is really drying out my vocal cords. I'm having a hard time with it. But we will talk about these towers. We'll also talk about the natural configurations that these towers are a perversion of. The natural ones are the crystal canyons. And these are all connected to the aurora races and what was put here to allow for the final evac if that should occur during a starfire event during the fall of this VECA system. So, excuse me again. There's a lot of new material to cover. This is fun because this was all I have, this one little page that went out on the internet like a week before. Well, we all got this. That's what I've got right now, too. Plus a few pages that look something like this. That looks something like, I don't know if you can see this, it's like hieroglyphics. I can't read it either, and I wrote it, which is frightening. But somehow my eyes can decipher it once I get back into that line of frequency. I have probably in 3 different notebooks that I managed to throw in a bag because they were coming in different pieces over the last week and a half. Different things that tell us about the history of the VECA Wars period, of what that has to do with the thetans and the threshold grid now, and what all of this has to do with what we're preparing for, and what any of that has to do with why we're going to Mount Shasta. Because there's a lot of, okay, I can get this far now, where does this go? I have a lot of pieces, little balls of information, but they haven't given me the string that links them together yet, because part of that information that would be, say, the missing pearls in the string are on security clearance, and we will be given those as we go along. The security clearance, I'm not sure why it's there, but it's usually so somebody doesn't do something nasty on the other side first in order to prevent something that the Guardians are trying to do in a positive way. So we will be learning about all of these things. One of the exciting aspects of the information that I feel excited about is what they began to talk about the aurora races, and during this period of aurora race involvement in density 1, there was something set into the planetary grids of Eartha. These were races of Eartha before the fall of Amente. They were before Earth was called Earth, because the Earth shield is the part of Tara. Now, if anybody's read Voyagers, it explained that literally this solar system was a hosted-in solar system. Each of our planets, that were originally 12 of them, and our sun, are parts of what was the large planet, Tara. And when Tara blew up, the parts of it that were able to be harnessed and brought down through and hosted into what were the existing density 1 stargates, SG1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 was Eartha, 4 was Sala. And now we have Earth shield, which is a part of Tara, hosted into the Eartha shield, and that's why Earth is SG3, is because Eartha is SG3, and the same with Sala, the solar gate. So there's a whole piece of history that has to do with this time period where this system was set up as the final evac station for this VECA system in the event that the VECA system would fall Wisadrak. And Wisadrak is what is the result of threshold activation. It's different than falling Wisadek. So there's a whole piece of the history that we'll get enough to understand about why it's important that we see where this history came from, so we know who's who a little bit more on the planet, what forces are pulling what where, and we can start to understand what's in our dormant potential within our gene code, within our DNA templates. All of the races on planet right now, all of the races of Earth, from seeding 1 all the way up through, and the Guardian races that came here, these are considered Amente races, because even the Guardians, even the Indigos, came here in order to assist the races that were being re-evolved, the angelic humans that were being re-evolved up from the fallen Terra races. So any of the life forms right now that are on this planet don't have in their DNA template the full Eartha coding, which means they would not be able to do Starfire, even if the planetary grids were fine, because we're all from a different system. Some of us were directly from the system right above, the Terran system. You could Starfire from Terra, but you couldn't Starfire from down here in density 1. The aurora potential that was put into this planet, and SG3, SG4, SG2, and SG1 are the only SGs that have this potential, the aurora potential, have the ability to pick up the Eartha. We have the ability to pick up the Eartha encryption, even if we were seated here without it. It means the angelic humans have a chance to get out. It means the indigos have a chance to get out, and other life forms, plants, animals, those kind of things. The aurora potential also has, and there's a connection. I remember getting another about 15 pages of scribbled things that looked like that described, first of all, about the aurora races and the type of form they had. They have several forms, but mainly they are shapeshifters. They can take on any form. Their natural form is like conscious air. And because of that, they can manifest and hold whatever form. There was a point in time where they chose to leave certain of their members here while the rest of them did the last density 1 Starfire into the Edens and left. There was one group of them that were taken into density 2, so they didn't do Starfire on density 1, and then brought back down here so they would hold the potential of Starfire in density 1. Now, there's something in our gene code that will, when we connect with that dormant aurora force that lives in every molecule, every atom on this planet, got the gift on Earth and Eartha, got the gift that was given to us by these aurora races. It cannot be activated if you're just running Earth Shield. It is part of the Eartha shield, but it is like a set of frequencies that will allow the two shields to naturally blend. So if you're just of the Earth shield, you will be able to pick up the coding of the Eartha shield, and you will also be able to begin to work consciously and co-creatively with the consciousness field. That is the atomic field of the aurora race consciousness that chose to allow itself to stay here in the form of conscious air, for lack of a better term. When we begin to co-create with this force within ourselves, it implies a condition of, let's say, entrustment from the Crystal A core councils. It's an entrustment because it begins to give you what is known as the ability of elemental command. Elemental command is where you begin to be able to influence directly, but only while working within the Christic framework. So if you try to command molecules and things to do something that is not in the best interest of yourself or the planet or whatever, it just won't work. However, you can co-create, and the elementals, the smaller elemental forms, will actually follow your directive as members of elemental command. Elemental command comes through activation of the aurora force within the gene code. We're going to begin the process of understanding more about what this aurora force is and what does elemental command mean. It means one thing I do know. The elemental command of the aurora force is of Eartha, which is the original. It is larger and stronger than the Earth shield. All right? Now, Earth, even before it got its shield reversed down here, the Earth shield part of our planet has its own elemental command that came from Terra, its own elemental pieces that were a part of the Terran elemental field. Those are being directed by the Metatronic forces right now, and they're actually in warfare with each other as far as the political dramas that are taking place between the Thetan races and the ones working Threshold and the other ones trying to escape from them at this point. What the Aurora forces, the Aurora force, is able to do is override, or at least temper to some degree, whatever is occurring with the elemental command or the elemental lack of command, because that's what we're going to be having on this planet. It's going to go into spewing as far as the elemental kingdoms on the Earth shield level. We will have the ability to work with Eartha directly and with the Aurora races and the rest of their kind in the Edens in order to help stabilize this planet, in order to get this whole reality field through to the point of starfire in as gentle a means as possible. And also, once that is done, when the starfire point does come, we will be able to activate the Aurora force and ride the inner light bands. I looked up the word aurora to become more certain about, okay, what is it? I know it's like aurora borealis, those things in the sky. It's basically, one of the things that's said in the dictionary was it's often described as the dawn, but that's just kind of like a way of, a poetic way of using it. In technical terms, it has to do with particles coming from the sun, stimulating the particles in the Earth's atmosphere and causing these particular light effects to occur. The aurora light forms, there's a lot more to it. As far as physics, they just gave me this stuff, so I haven't had a chance to dive into my science dictionaries and let's get more on aurora. But it has to do with frequencies that will excite the inner and outer atmosphere of this planet, that will allow a special form of heliotalic light to emerge. And it is that light that we will be able to ride into the Density 1 Starfire evac when the time comes. There's also something called the Order of the Lights of Aurora, and that has to do with a very special grid commission that is a Crystal A core commission, and it's a special set of trainings that are offered to those who want to be a part of them. These are not trainings that Az and I and Mac will be giving. These are trainings that we can get you to the door, and then it will be up to you and the Crystal A Council to take it from there. One of the things that we are going to be starting, and as I said when I started this conversation, that we were having our first official contact rendezvous when we go to Shasta. Now, I don't know if we're going to see anything flying or photograph anything. At this point, I have no idea. It could be, close your eyes and you see it, or open your eyes and be amazed. I don't know. But it is official because there is a duty that needs to be done. We will talk before we go, probably Sunday, I think. We'll talk about something called amnesty contracts for certain of the fallen races who have been doing nasty things here for a long time, but who really, really do not want to fall Wisadrak, because they've terrorized the Wisadraks for many, many eons, and if they fall Wisadrak, they're going to be terrorized for many, many eons. And it is not in anyone's best interest to allow that to happen, particularly when these particular groups have terrorized this planet and indigos and angelic humans by body snatching them, by overshadowing them and running them around like little puppets and those kind of things. There's a couple. These will be the first amnesty contracts. There will be other times when other amnesty contracts will be given to beings who are coming in to drop what you stole at the door, and the beloveds, through the indigo shield, will allow them to pass through into the Wisadek fall side, so they do not have to fall Wisadrak. But they have to leave what they stole at the door, which means people and not just one or two here or there, this is about large soul groups who have been harnessed by these beings. This first group that is going to be going through an amnesty contract, they make sharks look compassionate. They're very pretty when you see them. They walk around in flowing white robes all the time and have bright blue eyes and look like very pretty tall humans and like to pretend they're ascended masters. These guys have been running around Shasta for ages now. These guys are a descendant of the Templar solar initiates, the Elenians from Terra that fell, who got control of what are called the racial grids on this planet. And they have been controlling many, many of the races here that have any Anu descendancy. If you have any Anu codes, which everything at this point on the planet has some Anu coding, they have been controlling them. And there is a handover being taking place. It is from this handover that we will be receiving the ability in on host of certain groups that have been held hostage for a long time, such as Galactic Federation, Ashtar Command, Great White Brotherhood, and there's a whole list more, some of the Cryon crew, these guys. These groups will split because there is a host being offered to them, and they have been harnessed before, where the members aren't the ones who decided they wanted to play the games they found themselves ending up in. It was their leaders that made decisions to go against Emerald Covenant for them, and that was not fair. These are being released now. These groups of souls, these soul collectives are being released. One of the biggest jobs we will have on Shasta is we will be like a magic carpet. Our shield, the indigo shield, will be the magic carpet that receives them in quarantine, of course, because they've learned some really bad manners from the people they've been keeping company with, and they wouldn't know a Maharic seal if they sat on one. So, yes, yeah, it's not something that we will be in danger doing. But it is one of the most, in terms of when you get to look back and remember yourself as a guardian for ages and ages and ages, and all the different types of rescue missions and things you participated in, there's one type of feeling that makes it all worthwhile sometimes, is when after a really hard period of time, you finally are able to save some of those whose boat was sinking, where we're not saving them, we just simply allowed a platform that they could save themselves through, or at least get themselves to the next stage of their evolution. It's as if you knew that there was a species that was going extinct, and you found just a couple little more members of it, and you took them home and nurtured them, and you watched most of them die anyway, and there was only a few left, and then the few had a baby or two, and most of the babies died, and you had one left. And you watched it, finally, it grew. It didn't die. It went through the stages where the other ones didn't make it. And finally, it would make it, and it would begin the process of allowing that species to heal. This is the same type of feeling that goes with when you have one of these contracts, where you can be a part of a Templar team that's entrusted with receiving one of those endangered species who were just about at the point of final extinction. Because a lot of these beings have not gone fully Metatronic, they're partially Metatronic, and they were going to be finished off and never ever be able to become what they once were, or what their evolutionary plan was. So we get to collect them basically, and then bring them to the right spot, which we'll find out where that is. And there they will be picked up by the Hathor councils and taken from there. But we're the handover committee, where the bad guys come in and say, all right, we want to go through that gate because we're in big trouble if we don't, right? Here, we stole it, but you can have it back, not that we want to give it to you. So we're going to have interesting encounter of some sort with a large group of etherics that are going to come in with a real attitude problem and white gowns and those kind of things. And a lot of them will know you. All right, you will have had Atlantean connections with them. You may have thought that they were your friends. You may even have found a part of yourself incarnate among them and kind of going, uh-oh, I think I'm in trouble now. Because they did some games in Atlantis where they ran some really good con jobs, and they got a bunch of indigos to actually think they were somebody different than they were, and they interbred with them. And then indigo souls, some of them, got trapped and harnessed in the biology that only their overseers could control. So there was a whole game run down here by these guys. When they came in, they petitioned for an amnesty contract. And they petitioned with the attitude of, we need it. Give it to us. This is how these guys operate. It's like, oh, really? Right. That's nice, because these are the ones that instigated the breaking of the Treaty of Altair back in 2000, when it went into the war edict against the founders. They instigated this along with the Andromes, and they have no regrets at all. They'd do it again. They're just kind of disappointed that it turned out this way because they didn't win. Right? So these are not friendly folk. They're silver-tongued, and they love to talk in monotones, where, of course, they're ascended. They don't have to be emotional about anything. They do this whole schmooze that you just want to go, jump up and down and remind yourself you're alive. Yeah. There's a few of them, actually, that have people that they walk around as on the planet. There's a couple teachers that are actually associated with them. There are certain, I won't go there now. Let's say there are certain celebrations on some places of the planet that occur every year that you will find them walking among them, and you will find them walking as them as well. And that happens in various different places. I won't mention any names. Anyway, since we're going to Mount Shasta, know that we will meet some of these people. Now, meeting can be interesting. Meeting may be somebody we run into on the path up the mountain. They may be physical, right? Meeting may be caught movement out of the corner of your eye. Could have swore you saw something in a white gown that walked by and it's not there anymore. You'll get a lot of those because they're going to be tracking us and watching us and scowling at us, basically. And if any of you let your guard down, they will be glad to take you with them, except they can't. So they'll just be glad to mess with you and then dump you at the door because they have to leave you at the door, even if they get a hold of you there. If you start feeling wacky or like something's trying to be with you, push it back and don't let that happen, because they will play games just to be antagonistic, just because it's the final thing they can do before they have to drop it at the door. And what we don't want is a bunch of Azarites dropped at the door going, what was that? Right? Yes, all right, guys, pick yourself up. Yeah, no. Because we need to be the ones that hold our pillars strong, steady, and calm. And what is important is anger management. Because one of the things they like to play with most is pushing your anger buttons or your resentment buttons or your how dare you, how dare they have buttons. Oh, they love to play with those because it's a way into your emotional body. And if they can shake you up on the emotional body level, if you look at your pillar, if you imagine your pillar coming down and you have, chakra 3, chakra 2, chakra 1 down here. And if you mess with the emotional body, and chakra 2 starts to fibrillate and go, blah, 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 right? And it sends out these frequencies in this part of the pillar. Your whole pillar starts to do this because the bottom is going like this, right? They can't hit the pillar higher. And they want to whack. They're mad. And they want to just, wherever they can before they go. Because what they don't like about this deal is they have to return what they stole. And that was part of the deal. You don't want to fall Wisadrak and get yourself tortured from now until eternity because you asked for it and it's your karma. The Guardians aren't taking their karma away from them. But it will actually compound the Wisadrak's karma, so it's not helping them to do this either. And it is definitely in the best interest of Christic races everywhere, and even those that have the potential to re-evolve back into them, to get dropped at the door and not consumed in one of the black hole files. So they will let these guys through if they give back what they stole. And this is the first pickup that we get to collect some of those that are being dropped at the door. And this is going to be interesting. I think Sunday we're probably going to get a little bit of specialized training on this, because these are going to be beings that are very emotionally damaged from the experience they went through. And there are ways to handle them so they don't mess with your own emotional frequencies. Some of them will be very clingy and terrified. Others will be fine one minute and just irate the next. They're going to be like little emotional spewing pots because they have just got their marionette strings cut. And for the first time, they actually feel out of control. They would actually have felt safer in the body snatch position they were than have it dumped at the door. But it was either now or never. They will either have been absorbed by the ones who snatched them, or they will have to go through the fast leave. It's a fast cut. Normally, if there's a body snatch, sometimes these are called soul retrievals or oversoul retrievals. These have to do with oversoul levels, the density 3 levels. And it is supposed to be a slow process that takes place in stages, sometimes over years, once a being gets to the point where whatever took the body is agreeing to let it go. Usually there's at least a host that will come in on the Christic side to stabilize the neural networks. We're going to have some of that happening with these beings, where some of the guardian races are going to, they will not come into the body, because that's not going to help anyway. It's just putting another signature in there that doesn't belong in there, that has to purge. But what they will do is stabilize in the astral field these beings. Imagine etheric people, because this is what you're going to be dealing with. And what's freaky is you may start seeing these people in dreams. You may start seeing them at the supermarket. You may find these people in your 3D life, and they won't know you here, but you will know them, because you will have seen that they came over, that their soul and oversoul essence was released. And they will, part of this is they have agreed to, the guardians have agreed to help us out here, is to allow the faces to be seen. So if we get, say, a person, one of the nasties drops whoever it had was using the image of, right? Drops it at the door. That person on the say density 2 level starts to wake up, and that's the one that needs hosting. You don't have to take that home with you, but you will be able to see the face, and the face you will see will be the face of the one who it is here. So if you run into that being, you will understand that that was one of them. There's going to be bunches of these people coming in from different places at different times in the teachings that are going to be offered specifically for hosting and those kind of things. They are capable after this point of Rachelet training. And then whatever level they can hold, but at least they can activate Rachelet. They will, some of them, be able to activate part of the Aurora Force. But first, we've got to activate the Aurora Force, because a full activation of Aurora Force requires a minimum of 24 strands. However, you can do a partial with 12. And that basically means there is a pecking order as far as who gets to command the lightning. It's a cooperative venture. It is, you don't say, well, I want the lightning to do this, therefore lightning, you do this. No, it's like, well, lightning, consciousness, how about this? I think that this might be useful here. Do you agree? Right? In the Christic sense. And if the lightning agrees, then you co-create together. That's when you can do things like hold the swords up and ride the lightning bolts and things, but we don't need to do that because that's just showy stuff. Right? But it's fun, though, right? Yeah, someday we'll have time for sport and we can play with those games again, right? Because the elementals like to do that, too, actually. It's fun for them as well. But anyway, so there is a lot of information that's going to come through in this workshop. Most of what is on our itinerary here, or I wouldn't even call it an itinerary, our blurb, or whatever you call this little tiny paper. We have the Preemente Aurora races that we will talk about. We have the Aurora Force and elemental commands in activating the atomic Aurora potential. Well, I told you about what it's about, but I don't know what it's about at all as far as technicals go. I imagine the technicals are rather severe on this information, so they will give us as much as we need, but as far as graphs go, there's not going to be a lot because I don't have 6 years to do them. I don't even have, I'll have basically tomorrow morning and afternoon. Because we're getting everything in live on this, we're going to schedule the workshops and we'll do our best to be on time, instead of like, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to let you know that we will come in from 3 to 7, and then dinner will be 7 to 9, and then 9 to 12. And we will end at 12 so you can go to sleep. And we will be in on those times. That gives you your day free and us our day embedded in transmission. So you have, at the end of that our transmission day, you will have what that transmission is. There are several activations that are going to be done that they haven't told me what they are yet, other than the fact that one of them will be the next step in what was begun in the Easter workshop in Phoenix, this is the Tachyon cycle activation 2. It's called the Crystallate Starseed activation, where the 1728 Edon keys of the dyad level are going to come into activation, culminating in rebirth of the 636 Myad starseed. So this is resetting of the starseed level of your biology, and also of the activating that in the earth of biology. So there is a lot going on. I'm not going to try to elaborate on what it is because I'll just confuse all of us, including myself, if I try to give detail where I only have hunches, because I have little bits of feel about this, little bits of feel about that. What it comes down to is we're in the middle of an amazing drama. We have been, and most of us at this point know that. It's been really, really wild since 2000, and it's been really, really wild for a long time. You're going to find out how wild it was, because this matrix has been wild. It's like the wild, wild west. Everybody's shooting each other all the time. This has been a matrix that you would ask the question, why is this kind of thing allowed? When you look at the history, you think Earth has a long history of war. When we get into just the little pieces of information on the history that they're going to give us during that Vecca Wars period, this is insanity. I mean, everybody's raiding everybody. And the Christic races are still trying to, hold their own and hold the grids and do the best they can with what it is and help whoever and, stay out of it and try to convince everybody to stop doing this, and nobody's listening. It got really, really bad. I mean, that's why Andromeda is a galaxy unto itself, and we're down here in a falling system at this point in the Milky Way galaxy. The question of, they may get into this a little bit or not, I don't know this time, but the question of why is this allowed, to go this far, this bad? And I'd asked that, because I got to the point where I don't even want to know any more history. I don't want to know who was killing who and why, and who raided who, and who did what the next bad thing. I just don't want to know anymore, unless we really, really need to. You really, really need to know about these things, they were saying. All right. But the why was an interesting answer. They said, imagine Christic races, eternal races, in the Eden levels, the middle levels, and then the inner levels. In the inner levels, it doesn't happen too much, but there's a curiosity, innocent wonder, curiosity about the full nature of God's source in the Eden races. They know they have the ability to incarnate themselves into the outer domains and explore what God is. And sometimes the way to know something its fullest is to know fullest what it is not. To understand the Christ code, some collectives chose to express as its opposite in order to find out what that meant. Because if nobody ever did it, nobody'd ever know. The opposite of divine will was a course of study taken by certain eternal collectives in the Edens. The races out here, of which our races are also a part, were part of that study plan. It is as if there is a part of ourselves that is back in Eden, never left. And it's there, knowing it sent a part of itself that it loves. It didn't send it out for misery. We all agreed at that point. We were all one self, agreeing to let's go try this, right? We hear there's this reality field out there that you can really go nuts in, and you can find out answers to everything that you could only guess at if you didn't experiment, if you didn't try. But there'd always be the path of the Christ back. All right? It was never like, send out your incarnate and know you're just going to lose that one. It was never that. There was always the choice of free will to come back in and follow the the natural laws of physics as they apply to the systems, and it would get you back home and get you back in. But if an incarnate chose and used its independence to fulfill the will of opposite expression, that was actually a sadness to the part of the self that stayed in the Edens. But it was respected. And what was respected also was there was amazing things learned about what source is not, and why source is what it is, why the Christ code is what it is, and why it is eternal, why it is better to be nice than nasty, why it is better to share than hoard, why it is better to love source and have an open co-creative relationship with it than it is to not have a direct relationship with source. They learned about what ego means, what it means to be sourceless, to think yourself sourceless to the point where you have to pretend and play head games with yourself and create a false source that you call yourself alone and think you have the right to go walk all over everything else because you're on top. There's all sorts of lessons that were learned. And I remember thinking, gee, all this can happen just because we were curious? And they said, no, because we love source so much in those places where we didn't forget how to do that. We wanted to know every aspect of source. And by experiencing the height of its opposite expression, it made source and our love for source ever the more precious. So we could love source the most fully and completely by experiencing what it meant to know the lack of source. And then we could go back with absolute humility and absolute love and gratitude. And then we could teach other ones who hadn't figured that out yet that you might not want to try that. Don't try this at home or out there, because really it's not much fun, right? So there is a place of understanding that takes us out of the kind of knee-jerk emotional reactions we might have to these kind of dramas here, particularly when you're walking around, limping around through them and trying to get out of them. There is a place of peace and understanding why that this is all right, actually. Source never had any doubt. The Source knows starfire happens and it will fix things like this, and it knows nothing can ever be outside of itself. Everything is in Source, so you can't be thrown out into a universe that doesn't have source. You can also only be thrown out into a universe that has forgot it's a part of source. So it's not an issue for the beings who know eternity. And you have a part of you as a being that knows eternity. That's how you got out here in the first place. So when we have things like, okay, a system's going to starfire, some beings get out, some will go black hole fall. Well, black hole fall has an end of its story too. And that end of that story, it is a path of exploration, of learning to do many things that they might have forgotten a long time ago, like cooperate and use their resources well, instead of like letting them all get burned up and killing each other. Once those things are learned, there is still a peace, even for those races. They can choose a Christic stance, where you say, I don't care if I go back as space dust, or if I go back with my full memory banks. The thing is, I never left, and it's just a matter of perspective, and I am still loved, and I am still capable of love, and those kind of things. So even with space dust return, you are not never going to meet God again. You are simply going back in a different way. So if we can look at and not get caught up in the wanting to sob about what races are going to fall, realize they will evolve to a path that leads to space dust return. But at their highest of that evolution, they will learn that that's okay too for them. They will also learn what not to do if you want to go back the other way. And they will take that lesson back to others. Some of them will have a long, long time if they can hold a Christ Guff host, which means they can still take incoming energy that's falling from elsewhere and host it into a fall system, thereby expanding their own quantum and holding off the natural implosion of their black hole by receiving more quantum, by not stealing it, but by receiving it and helping it to reach its height of evolution. So this is the beginning of a separation of paths of evolution, but they all do lead back to the same place, and that same place is source. It's just the path. We teach the path of the Christ, the eternal path, because it is the one we favor most. And most would, but the thing is, the people who choose the other path have forgotten what that means anyway. It might be crushing if we had to think, oh my gosh, I have to go back and I'm just going to fall down a black hole. Would it be worse to go back as space dust, or worse to live for 500 billion years under the control of some kind of fascist warring races that have fallen and want to use you as a puppet? There are fates worse than space dust. Yeah. So if people that still come to workshops like this because you still have enough in you to care, to feel that there is a connection to source, it would be a pain, a deep pain to us if someone told us we could never go back to God, not even in pieces. It would be devastating, because we remember the value of what that means, of what source means. Even if we can't remember all the technicals, we can feel that presence of God's source with us, of that eternal God source. If you are a being that has got to the point where you're doing full black hole fall, you have no sense of that feeling anymore. You can have somebody who does have that sense say, you can do this, you can fix this, you can bioregenerate, you can get yourself back so you can go home to source. I don't want to. Who needs source? I've got this, I've got that. They seriously have no value of the concept. So when they go back during their evolutionary paths of space dust return, they don't do it with the angst that it would be like for races who still have the feeling of that connection, because they've lost that feeling already. So it's like being walking dead anyway. If you can't feel the love of source, you can't feel the love of a flower. If you can't feel the love of a flower, you can't feel the love of another person. If you can't feel the love of another person, you're very, very alone here. And if you're very, very alone here, you find that all the toys in the world, all the distractions, all the highs or lows or anything you can do to yourself or for yourself or buy for yourself or take yourself to, get boring. And none of it means anything. And if you get yourself to that state, you can hit your bottom and have that little bit of inkling come up in your cells where you remember, some part of you remembers there's something more, that life does have meaning, existence has meaning. Or you can go the other way, where you become just angry for being alive, because life has no meaning. And you can loop yourself in scientific knots of intellectual masturbation, because that's what's happened on this planet. Oh, everybody knows so much, and that's great. Yeah, they do. They know pieces of things, but nobody's linking all the pieces together to come up with a story that tells anything about the truth. The truth is, source has always been, always is. And it's not the source that's in the Bible, but that Bible was supposed to be built on the idea of understanding that there was such a source. It's not the source that was in the Quran or any of the other holy books, because they all were meant to lead us to remember that source is there. But they all took it on a tangent because they've been played with in ways. Those books have been played with, the truths woven in and out. So we're going back now, and we are fulfilling a mission that we started a long time ago. We are having, this is the first time it's kind of like, pull out whatever old badges you accrued back in Atlantis or way before, because you're on duty as the Templar team. This is the first time. The Grid Keepers, that's why there is an official Grid Keepers list, because these will be the people who wanted to be a part of that. And it's not a list that, that is an open list. Anybody who wanted to participate in being Grid Keeper could do that. And we're not like, putting you under a microscope and saying, oh, do you have how much Anunnaki coding, how much track coding, how much indigo's left? It's not one of those. Beings of all forms here are welcome to be a part of this. There's one set of rules, and that's these rules that we work with are the original Christic rules, and that's Christic with a K, not necessarily a C, and that doesn't mean it's only for Christians, because the Christians that identify with the Christian word that starts with C that involves those books and all of those things like the Bible, they are not using the same set of rules. They are using another set of rules at this point and calling them Christic when they were built on Christic and then twisted. So if you want to be, people ask me, are you Christian? I say, darn right I am. And I'd never be anything else. If somebody said to me, are you a Muslim? I could say, well, I could be, because I love Allah. Right? Okay. Well, you're, all right, so you're a Christian that loves Allah. I thought Christians were supposed to love Jehovah. Well, Jehovah's all right, but, there's a whole orientation that's beyond all of that nonsense. This nonsense is being used to separate us again. As usual, the belief systems that are written down in the holy books get twisted by people who use them as control dramas so they can point little soldiers at each other to see who's going to win the next level of the war game. We're moving toward a big one of those right now. And I'm not sure if we're going to get information on what that level looks like in relation to the dramas that are taking place, the interdimensional ones that we're talking about. At some point we will. We've talked about before that there are forces that are trying to move the situation on the planet into what would be on the outward a World War III drama. Now, they've been stopping and starting this drama for a while now. Oh, first they wanted to have it in 2006. No, and then they decided they'd push it back to 2008. Then they decided, no, 2011 might be a good time. So there's literally a protocol that's set in motion, that's like written down, and I think it has to do with the Bilderberg Committee and those kind of things, that there are plan of protocols of how to make that war happen and when. What they don't know, the people who wrote this up, are who they're dealing with as far as ETs. They know ETs are here. They've been hiding it for 75 years or more from the public. That's common knowledge at this point. I mean, seriously, over 75 years. That's a whole generation of people who don't think ETs exist after the governments fully knew they did because they made treaties with them, for goodness sakes. What the government people don't know is who they made treaties with, who they're connected to. And that's why they come to our workshops. They have little people that come to our workshops sometimes to do their job to find out what we say about all of them. Right? Because if they want to know, if the DRAC parts of the government want to know what the Anunnaki are doing, they can come to our workshops. If the Anunnaki want to know what the DRAC are doing, they can come to our workshops. Because we just let you know what the drama's doing. We don't care what those guys are doing because we have our own thing, which is we're simply just standing in the Christ and trying to be healing on this planet if we can. We don't get political. We don't get involved. If we see somebody fighting with each other, we'll say, excuse me, please don't do that here, not in our presence. You know what I mean? Don't wipe each other out in our presence. So anyway, we're in the middle of a big game interdimensionally. We have our first entrustment, our first commission, and we will at some point, and I think it's going to take place on Shasta, we are going to be invited, those of us who want to, become a member of the Order of the Lights of Aurora. Now, you can activate the Aurora Force. That everybody has the ability to begin the process of activating, but then you don't have to join, the Lights of Aurora or whatever. It's a gift that was given to this planet, and it exists in the molecules and the atoms of this planet. But there are certain levels of elemental command trainings that go with the Lights of Aurora. Yeah, that'll happen in the woods part. And what? Yeah. Okay, so we go up the mountain. That's going to be when we get back down, right? Yeah. 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 Yes, that will be the final leg of our, after we get back down the mountain, that we're doing a gathering in a woodland area there. That's when this particular thing, and I have a feeling that's when the handover is also going to be done. Where after we get the business of the day out of the way, which is the just holding shield, as they call it, just showing up and breathing and holding shield, the Christic shield space, for the beloveds to allow the amnesty contracts to pass through, and we'll be fully protected. They'll be sealing us really well so the others can't do anything nasty to us as they pass through. They will be leaving the ones that are the hosters that, you have to drop it at the door. If it wasn't yours to begin with, you drop it at the door. And we're going to be assisting them in going, and I think we may have a pickup of some sort right there. I don't think we're even going to carry them from there in the Indigo Shield. I think we're going to receive them, and then there's going to be almost like a pickup of some sort to come in and get these soul groups and take them where they need to go. And then there's going to be some kind of communion that takes place and it will be through the elemental forces. So this is going to be like time to tune into Earth and Eartha. And I don't know what it's going to look like or feel like yet, but I get a little feel from it that's almost like basically when I go, And it's more so because there is a feeling of the Eartha presence that is so strong, and it's just, I want to like throw yourself on Earth and kiss the ground and go, Mama, that kind. And this is like the big Mama. This is Eartha before Earth, right? It's also Earth. The pieces of Earth that can still heal and go home are being embraced by their original Eartha shield that was their host, and we will be able to connect with these. So I don't know if we're going to get like a swarm of butterflies that come by and go, hello, 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 we're here, or if we're going to get, like the real white-robed guys that they're actually etheric, and they're not the same ones that the others are trying to mimic. See, there are good white-robed people as well, but yes, strange little pockets of balls of mist, those kind of things. You might get those. I know we had an interesting effect that has to do with these guys and the Iani that when we went to Kauai, and you could almost feel them as if like there were several groups of people and they were singing. And you could hear them inside your head, but you couldn't hear them outside. Or once in a while, you'd actually be able to hear them outside as if it were on the breeze. So I don't know if it's going to be one of these kind of contacts. I don't know if it's going to be a spaceship. I mean, it could be anything. But I doubt it's going to be that direct, as far as I don't think we're going to get something that, like lands in the middle of our circle and says, hi, want to go for a ride? It's probably not going to be one of those. The people who choose to participate in the Lights of Aurora trainings. This is where we will here, the speakers here and the Indigo Shield, will assist in you making the connection to the beloveds, and you will take it from there. But there will be a series of inner trainings that you will go through, and you never come to us to ask whether you got a level or not. It's not our business, and we won't tell you. We won't know. So this will be very personal with each of you, and we'll also give you a protected forum by doing it this way. And there'll be other times for other groups where Lights of Aurora or Order of Lights of Aurora offer will be made, where because we're in a protected shield, all right, you can make a link with who will be your mentor trainer as far as the advanced Rachelet trainings that you will be getting. You also will benefit if you want to take the Rachelet trainings we're going to be giving here, and the Sadi trainings we're going to be giving here, because they will complement your help you in the 3D. But you will be very safe in making these connections with the group, because you're in a protected field. So you don't get ones like the fake masters coming in and pretending they're your mentor. So you will at least, what we can do, we can't guarantee you'll be able to hold a secured line. It's all about you, your karma, and your DNA template. But we can at least get you to the point where you can make the connection to a secured line and then work with them directly to try to hold that. So there will also be techniques as we go along in Rachelet training that will help you to hold that secured line. But when Lights of Aurora training is offered in the protection of a Nazarite group shield event like this one, it will at least give you It's the most they can give you and the least they can give you all at the same time. At least you will get an opportunity to know you at least got an active connection with one of the training groups. There are going to be a couple of groups we're going to meet, and one of them are called the Ishanue races. These go back to the history that we don't know anything about yet that have to do with a race called the Bendi races. It's a long name. Bendi is the nickname. All right, so we're going to learn about these races and how they connect to the Aurora races. One of the images that the Ishanue races take on is what I believe were called griffins in our mythology, where they're actually the winged lions. Right? Now, this is the form that they need to appear in. They're also shapeshifters. They can really take on any shape. But their base shape, because they took on the cat form of Elohai, founders from this Veka, and the bird form of Seraphi from this Veka, founders races, they have taken on those forms and combined it with the form from their matrix, which was the adjacent Akasha system. All right. These races are one of the first of the there are 12 Aurora races, 3 that will work with Earth. These are one of the 3. They will begin the process of making the first connections. Some of you will actually have connections to them or to some of the other Aurora races, either in passing or maybe even as direct family in your incarnational history. So they will, if you're not directly out of one of theirs, they'll actually link you up with one of the other races that you're more connected to. So it's an event that we've not had one like this before. It has its official protocol bit where we need to help we get these amnesty contracts out of the way so we can get the host contracts going. Then there will be Emerald Covenant restatement that has to do with on a planetary level, where we get to there's some kind of official ceremony, and I don't know what it is yet, but it's not whites. You don't have to do whites. We're not going to show up on Shasta all dressed in white. No, no, not a good idea. No, we're just going to have probably a lovely hike up the mountain, breathe a lot, come down the mountain, and have a lovely sit-down, possibly circular picnic on the ground in the lovely woodland. And we'll know more of what that is going to, what we're doing with the rest of our fields while that is taking place on the 3D. Because we are doing nothing conspicuous, nothing out there that looks wacky or weird. It's because we wouldn't want to upset anybody local or anything like that. But we will have these contact experiences on the mountain. Now, this has to do also with the Telos gate. We've talked about the Telos gate before. Telos connects in through Shasta. Telos on the other end, that's not on this planet, connects in through what used to be Telos as a star system. It's actually a star, was a piece of Brennaway. Brennaway, the original Brennaway, was the Stargate 1 of our inner Eka system that during the fall of Brennaway, 208,216 BC, was partially blown off. And the part that blew off was held in suspension, has to do with the graviton machine and all of the messy black hole stuff, was held in suspension. It's a place that's referred to as Telos. And it's actually a big long name, but Telos is part of it, and it got shortened to become Telos. So Telos is... Yes, it is connected to France too, isn't it? Yeah, I wondered that because it's Telos is T-E-L-O-S. I believe our guys spell it right. You know Toulouse in France, Toulouse. Yeah, there's a connection there too that runs in through the Shasta one. Now these have been Templar control sites that were used by the negative ones for a very long time. Various groups. They often fight with each other over them. It has been this particular group of the white-robed ones with the blue eyes that aren't very nice that have been controlling, and anybody that has been taken through portals or anything up in Shasta area has unknowingly been plugged in to their host matrix, which is an absorption matrix. You've been taken through and into shields where you got implanted, and you've been taken into black hole systems for little journeys into the fallen parts of the Amente Gate system. So if that's happened to you, that's all right. That can be undone because that's part of what gets left at the door. at this point. So anyone that's been messed with, will be the first group that if you've had any of that in this life or others, where they actually implanted you, where they were getting you and taking you on journeys so you could become, say, one of their record keepers or one of their, photographers going through. Yes, I saw I saw the city. I saw you saw them. They're real, and they are in black hole territory, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to stay there just because you passed through. Just visit and bye, never going there again, right? We are assisting on the planetary level in a larger handover that is occurring, where the particular races that have been controlling this whole set of Telos gates, because there's a whole set of them that go all through our galaxy, actually, and into the universal Vecca system from Telos, the fallen part of Brennaway, and that's way up there. It'll be easier to describe when I show you the Vecca maps again, to point out where exactly that is in relation to Lyra and all of those systems, our gate systems. But on the planetary level, we are the official Templar committee that is being asked to assist in and hold the shield for this handover, where the Telos crew, because they do not want to fall Wisadrak, and they will if they don't get help, are saying, fine, you take it. You can have it back. You can have Telos. Take the gate system, the big one. They're handing back the Telos system, the other part of Brennaway, which means it's too late to you're not going to stop this Vecca from falling, but at least you can get its pieces to fall more closely together. So we are going to allow an opening of the Telos gates. So the, let's say, Anu-affiliated and Andrami-affiliated ones that have sided with the Wisadek races who do not want to fall Wisadrak, they can do a final cross through into the Wisadek black hole system and get out of here, where they can go back into their own hole. And the Budhara, too, by the way, they came through that side, and they do not want to be following Wisadrak, because they've done really nasty things to Wisadraks before. So the Budhara, which means the Chanterelle, which means the Magenta races, are all going to drop their baggage at the door. And their baggage is precious, because that baggage is people who weren't meant to be magenta-ized, who weren't meant to be Budharad. So there's a lot of people that are coming back. And this is the beginning. This is opening the first part, the main part of the Telos Gate. There's a whole bunch of tributaries all over this planet, by the way, that link in to the Telos Gate that have been being run by various fighting factions of different fallen groups on the planet. We are getting the main control center back. And it's like, I don't care what they call themselves. They can run around up there and talk to the guys in white and do whatever they want. It doesn't matter if we're ever allowed back on that mountain again, because it will be coded into our shield. And anybody that wants to actually use the gates will have to ask the Azurite committee, not necessarily here, but up there. So I wouldn't say it's a takeover. Not a hostile one. It's a handover. Here, my business is going bankrupt. I'm giving it to you. Have a good time, right? That's basically what it's about. We're just here to show up because somebody's got to take it. So they are saying, all right, fine, we want out. We want to cross over. We want to fall in the Wisadek matrix, not the Wisadrak matrix. And we hate you. We hate all of you. But we know you can open they're calling them the rainbow gates. You can open the rainbow gates and let us through. Yes. And here, take it, plug Telos into the rainbow gates if you must. This is where we will get the ability to run the rainbow spiral, where it will run through what were the old Telos gate systems. So we will have the rainbow host spiral that allows an opportunity for a whole bunch more to actually make it through Starfire. It will run through this Telos gate system. It will be connected directly in to Shasta, and Shasta will be a control point for all sorts of places on the planetary grids. But it doesn't mean we always have to be here. I mean, maybe the people of the area will want us here. Maybe they won't, and we won't wear out our welcome. We'll go away if they want us to. However, it will be a place that we can also start journeying through, because those on the crystal spiral can pass through the rainbow spiral to get into crystal activation more rapidly. It means once these gates start to open, we can begin the process of experiencing gate pass, first of all. And first it will be through Saudi, and we'll be taught. We're going to be starting to do small groups of 24 people. And they're called the 12 tribe classes. You get 2 sets of 12. And this is going to be interesting because there's a lot of people that are going to be interested. It's not just for grid keepers. It's going to be open to first come, first serve, basically, and there's a procedure that I will let you describe when we get to that. Grid keepers will get first dibs on any particular one of these because it will literally be just 24 people in a smaller space, but we will have the ability to do, we'll have space where you can do the lay down thing where you can go out, and we can help you get out and hold the shield for you guys to learn to hold the shield in those spaces. It's very interesting because I don't know, some moms might know this one, or maybe dads too if you spent a lot of time with infants. You know infants, when they're very hard to go to sleep, they want to be up all night, they're like wide awake, one of those kind of, I've had several of those. There is a way to hold your own brainwave patterns that you lay down with the baby, right? And the baby's like there, right there. And as long as you stay awake, right? As long as you think thoughts, you can pretend you're sleeping, but your brain's going like this, right? Back there. Baby knows it. Baby's going, right? You need to make yourself asleep while being awake, right? You learn how to ever so carefully bring yourself into those states that you know you felt before you fall asleep. But no, you do not want to fall asleep. But know that if you allow mental activity up here, your baby will hold the same pattern with you, right? If you want the baby to go to sleep, you bring it to a certain level of brainwave. And then the baby's own self will take it from there. And then you ever so carefully slip out from under that and go, oh, right? Oh, that only took a half hour that time, right? You know? Well, what you can do with children that way, it also helps with sick people and things like that. You can help where you actually can set a field in your field that will give them a model to follow that will help them calm down or help them go to sleep or help them in. This is great for indigo children, by the way. You can set and model the field. That's why if you do stuff with a kid that has like ADD or something like that, you can actually help to set a model, a field model, that their field will actually try to remodel and hold, right? And as long as you're there and holding it, they can hold the focus. As soon as you move away, bang, the focus is gone. They're all over the place, bouncing off walls, can't sit still, you know, that kind of stuff. So this same type of ability to modulate your own field, modulate your brainwave patterns, modulate your chakra flow. This is part of energy mastery, learning how to master your own self. It will give you the ability to be able to help other people to reach states. We have been fortunate, and I have been very fortunate. I have been taken very, very young, and even before the walkout experience. My walkout self also was trained from the time she was very small of how to reach certain states of consciousness and stay awake, where you could go through the alpha state and into something called a theta trance, that you could actually, you're fully awake. But it would probably read, I believe, if you were hooked up to a machine, it would probably read as theta brainwave patterns associated with sleep. But you're fully awake. And you have a totally different relationship with your body and your elements and reality at that level. Some of the native tribes, both American and others, South American and Australian tribes, refer to these as the sacred dream time spaces, where you begin to go into those spaces, where you literally do begin your Rashalay. It's the beginning of Rashalay. This is where we get into Sadi states. And the Sadi states are the first states in learning how to get out and mobile and multiple, where you can multiply and make as many of yourselves through your Rashalay as you want to and put them where you need to. And if you get really, really good, you can actually make them physical. Yeah. Imagine making a projection, sending it across the room, and then down, stepping its frequency, so it's back in the 3D. You can stand there and look at yourself and go, hi. Right? Yeah, it gets weird at that point. I don't think we're going to learn that part right away, but we're going to do these small classes. I hope levitation's first on the list. That's the one I really want to be able to teach you guys. I really want to be able to do it again. Anyway, the small classes are necessary because right now, between the two of us, we can work together and together have enough field resonance to be able to keep in a protection field with the beloveds with us, and to give that imprint for you guys, for 24 people to follow. If there's more than 24 people involved, the collective brainwave patterns of everybody, which are all over the place at different levels, would be stronger than the model field we're trying to hold. So it would be difficult for anybody. That's why we don't even try to get you into sati in groups this size, because there's too many brainwaves flying around. You'd need a good circle of us to be able to hold the field of, okay, let's say this is a sati state, right? Get ourselves into that state and just hold the shield of it. So you could then find it and get yourself into that state yourself. Once you get some practice with getting into it, and even once getting, where you actually find that state, is enough to imprint your own biology to remember where it is, and it will take it from there. So these classes are going to be interesting. We won't talk too much about them right now, but they are coming before too long. There will be sets of 24 people. First come, first serve basis. Grid keepers will get first dibs on those first come, first serve positions because of your commitment to working with the planet and because the sati ability will assist you. Sati training is part of, but different from, Rachalet training. Rachalet trainings can be done in larger groups. So they will be done. We will continue workshops that get into Rachalet training and for larger groups. The sati trainings will be, the 12 tribes trainings, will be for specialized. They will amplify your ability to do all sorts of things, but they will also be part of they will highly assist, they're saying highly assist in for people who want to do the Order of the Lights of Aurora trainings where you're getting the inner trainings. These will help hugely with the balancing it in the outer, of bringing it right through, of getting more out of your training, remembering your training earlier, right? Being able to meet your people there, whoever's you're training with, and this kind of stuff. These are mastery trainings that we weren't going to probably touch any of in this particular drama if it had gone normal. There were some that we were going to be taught about, but much closer to 2012 and 2017 if we hadn't gone into Starfire. But we are literally on, at this point, because of the activations that have already taken place during the Easter period of this year, if it got really wacky here on the planet and it was necessary, we do have enough activation in the indigo shield now where we could be pulled through. At least the indigos and a bit of the human shield could be pulled. Not too much of the human one yet, but it's that 3-day standby kind of thing, 3-day engage. We have the ability to engage now. So at any time, that we wouldn't even need the 3-day. If say the planet was going to like roll or explode or anything horrible, which it probably won't, but if it were, they would be able to fly the indigo shield, and it would literally turn into a large Merkaba, and wherever you were, you'd become part of it, and and you would go into the first safe zone, which if they had to pull that fast, I don't know where the first safe zone would be, because they wouldn't be able to take you all the way into Eden yet. There'd have to be something, like protection field first. Yeah, holding station in order to get you ready so you could go, the rest of the way. But anyway, that's, I think, as much as I can tell you about what we're going to be learning this weekend. I'll let you say that. No, I'll let you say that. He's going to, right, yeah, we'll have dinner. You can just tell them that really quickly. It's silly for you to tell me to tell them. You're sitting right there. Right? I don't remember. You know how I am with dates and details. There's like greatest time. I'm the one that asks. I wake up in the morning and go, what day is it? That's May, right? Right? Yeah, if you can give me the day, I can probably give you the month. When you start to get out a lot, when you're going out of body a lot, it gets really, really weird because you come back and you go, oh, I know it's somewhere between the 18th and 28th, whatever, and you really have to start sticking calendars everywhere just to remember what day it is and what time it is. It's really freaky. But anyway, we are going to cover the Aurora material, the beginning of the Aurora force material. We will find out about the Belly Mahatma, because that is the name of those guys that run around in white that we were talking about that have been controlling the Shasta gates, who are the nasty ones that are going to hand them over because they're losing their Tellus connection, because the big guys up in the Tellus region are saying, here, take Tellus, you can have it back, we're out of here, just open those rainbow tunnels, let us go through now. So this is a big one as far as, this is the biggest thing, even bigger than what we've done for Hitaro and all of those things. things that we've been working the grids with. This is the biggest thing we've been asked to do as a Templar Guardian team. And it's pretty fascinating. This is official commission stuff, like on duty, right? Hope you're functional, one of those, right? That's them. I mean, I'm not hoping you're functional. They're hoping all of us are functional enough to do this. So anyway, the 12 tribes classes, we're calling them 12 tribes classes, and they will be groups of 24. And as we'll be able to give you more information on the logistics of how these work, because I can never remember. It goes in one ear, out the other. I can get programs down, and that will stick, but not the rest. So I will say good night, so I don't have to go back and do that all over again, because we can do dinner after this. And tomorrow we will get together at 3 o'clock for the first workshop. Right? So I'm saying.
Jimmy's all yours, right? Okay, at 3 o'clock. Fine. I don't understand why we're doing this.
Thank you.
I mean, you got apart from being delightful, you got to be absolutely nuts showing up this place, you know. I mean, you got one person who doesn't want to be here, can't remember what day of the week it is, and the other person who's trying to see more clearly about what things are going to look like can't find his spectacles most of the time. So really, I don't know why you listen to us. Anyway, and all this fuss, all this other fuss about the detail, we only have a tiny amount, which is, first of all, we've decided when we're going to start. This is a revelation, isn't it? They will begin in October this year, just in case you were wondering. Every month, all things being equal, but they're not. But we're planning a monthly program, aren't we, boss? Right. So yes, the intention is to run every month, and if we don't, then it'll be an exception, because there are only 24. If you just think in terms of, yeah, don't finish it, right? Out of the 450 gridkeeper people at the moment, right, 24 times 12 is 288. So even if a half of the gridkeeper group said, this is for me and I really want to do it, then in 1 year, only a half of all of the gridkeeper people could be processed through the training as things stand. And neither of us have any reason to think, certainly in the short term, that we can safely increase the group size beyond 24.
We'd have to, it'll be an activation level.
We'd have to explode, probably. Or we just have to disappear and come back again with a lot more good news than we're giving you at the moment. Anyway, I'll continue, as is my wont sometimes. So the best way to proceed with this is to absolutely, if you're listening, absolutely discourage any of you to try and do anything about getting your name on a list this weekend. You will have approximately 10 working days in which to get yourselves in your traps ready for the go notice, which will be, traps is what greyhounds come out of, or horses sometimes. All right?
Oh, starting it. Okay.
Yeah. See, you always use longer words in America, don't you? I mean, traps works. You know, it really works. It's just a short, tight little word. You can get in there and come out again. In about 2 weeks, we will get ourselves together and up, I hope, in the midst of all sorts of other paraphernalia to do with visas, embassies, and God knows what else. We will just, when it's ready, we'll just go ping. It'll hit the Grid Keepers group, and whoever's online or whatever picks up on it first, you just happen to get lucky. But the registration process will begin from that point, okay? And it will simply accumulate, running from 1 through whatever the last number is. I've been getting a suggestion that we will probably do a further random selection inside of that. So just because you're like number 12 or number 19 on the list doesn't mean to say you're going to get in group 1. So I think we're going to do a selection, like every one in every group of 12, all the ones and all the twos, something like that, so that it compensates. Don't worry about it. What it's doing is coming in. It isn't. I understand it. I can do it. All right. So that to try and spread the idea, because you can't all register as number 1, though you'd all like to, right? It's just a way of selecting out of every 12. That's all. Just a way of pulling the group out. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And the way Nola sorted out the grid keepers work, you can run a little thing that'll produce it just like that. I know you can. Absolutely. You got it. dead right. So in about 10 days' time, pardon me? Yes, exactly. So first comes first served on a random basis. You got it, right? Fine. So in about 2 weeks, that's all you need to know. In about 2 weeks, just keep an eye on the Grid Keepers list, and the announcement will be made. And it will basically be invitation. There'll be confirmation of what we think will be a gathering around about, to start on a Friday at about 1 o'clock. Here. Where? No, hang on. I'm in Phoenix at the moment. So you just come over to Phoenix, right? Because that's where it's going to be. I'm sorry. You see, I've been practicing what we're going to teach you, which is to bilocate, and I just forgot for a minute. I was over there and I wasn't here at all. Yes. So what a fool. Anyway, so we'll tell you that. It'll be a DoubleTree in Phoenix. Okay, a little private conference room, nice and cozy. We've got to figure out a little program, costing, what we're going to include, like coffee breaks and all the rest of it. But we begin, I think, on Fridays at 1. So you have time to get in without breaking too much into your week. And we will close on a Sunday, so you have time to get out. And if you have like 9 to 5 day jobs or similar on Mondays, you can get back home in time to pick up again. So it doesn't really knock 2 weeks in an inconvenient way. All right, so we will give you more of those kinds of details when we send out the circular. And just be an invitation. I'll have to speak to Noel and see if we can set up a similar little registration list routine that he did for Grid Keepers, which shouldn't be difficult. And as soon as we get the first wave in, we'll send out confirmation soon enough for you to be able to know when you're being invited to come down to Phoenix. Or here, if you prefer. Okay.
On that note...
Which one?
Phoenix, and Grid Keepers. Just for clarification, especially if you guys you heard it here first, when you go back and start talking to the main group and people that are not here, it is open in the sense that, say there's the one that I'm just saying, for example, like say the October one, that would be for the month, 124 group for the month of October. If the first 24, it will be put out to the Grid Keepers first, but it is not just being for Grid Keepers. So there will be times when, say, maybe out of the Grid Keepers list, only 3 people decide that they feel right about needing to be there for that training. They will be the same, well, pretty much the same training. Each group will have training catered to who shows up on that group. So there will be little variances, but it will be the same training to achieve the same goals, but it will be catered to who the shield is, the group shield that shows up for that one. But I don't want it to get out to the other people that it is if it's just something that they won't have access to. There will be times when if we only get, say, 3 people from Grid Keepers that wants to come to that particular month's one, and we still have the rest of the slots open, 21 slots open, then it would next go to the people who have finished K2-3 level of the Cathara. And if it still weren't filled, then it would go to K1. But it does need a K1 requirement, because you're just going to be lost in outer space if you don't know at least the procoil of K1 that gives you the 15-dimensional structure, the basic anatomy, and that kind of stuff. It's like, find your Yumbi. Huh? Right. Never mind. All right, it's in the book. Which book? Good question. Okay. All right. So there is a step-down process as far as we're not just making it an exclusionary thing that the only